and a lot of marketing, but we are doing some recycling, and you know, that we have to look at that as well because it is important. We do care about the earth. So the bottom line is, from a financial standpoint, I'm going to look at print now and just give you a little bit of an idea of what you're looking at here. So upper left-hand corner, those are your copiers. Upper right-hand corner, those are your printers. Take a look at those two columns. They look pretty similar to me. Now, what's interesting is when we come into most of our clients for the first time, look at the lower left-hand corner, you've got multiple vendors dealing with either of these things, even though, to me, it's exactly the same thing. When someone in an enterprise hits print, what do they care where it's coming out of? It's still print, right? When you go over to scan something, whether it's a desktop scanner on an accounts payable clerk's desk or a monster production scanner, you're still doing what? You're taking paper and entering it into a system. It's still scanning. So this is one of the reasons why people don't know how much they're spending. You've got one person in the enterprise that's buying copiers, and they're paying a lease and a service. It's usually all bundled in, and they got a pretty good handle on what the hard costs are. But then you got people in departments individually buying printers. You got 1 million people ordering toner. There's toners, you know, everywhere. IT is going crazy trying to figure it out, and you really don't know what your cost is. So the idea is that, you know, this is one of those things where you got to start looking at it a little differently and not just do it the way we've always done it, if you want to really save money and impact the situation. So this is what it looks like when you streamline it a little bit better. So remember, you're paying about 3% of your annual revenue for this. What you might not also know is roughly 25% of everything that employees print gets thrown into the garbage. That's a pretty big number. Keeping a printer plugged in costs about $10 a month just for electricity. So when we go into a big organization that has 500 printers, they want to get rid of some of them because some of them aren't doing that much work. So when you come to security now, let's talk about the print environment there. So if 25% of what's being printed is getting thrown in the garbage, let's talk about a real-world scenario. So my colleague, Mike over there, that's who your contact is at LDI. So Mike wants to print a presentation that he's going to be bringing over to Michael Clay to try to sell him something. He's running late because everybody is multitasking, and you know, we're always running to a deadline. So he hits print. He runs out to the copier to pick up his presentation to bring to Michael. But what he didn't know was 2 minutes before he hit print, I hit print, and I'm printing a master report that I'm bringing into the boardroom to talk about the last quarter in great detail. He knows this report is a disaster, so what does he do? Anybody? What's he going to do? Exactly. He goes back to his desk, he hits print, sends it to another device, picks up his PowerPoint, runs out, meets with Michael. Now, what happens when my job finishes printing? Exactly. His job comes out, and then what happens to it? Well, it doesn't get thrown away yet. Usually it moves over, right? Somebody moves it over, and it sits there for a little while. Then it moves into the blue basket, and then eventually, hopefully, it's being recycled. So that's that piece that's wasted. In a lot of cases, we print something, we don't like it, we print it again. So we're not soft-proofing on the screen when we might be able to save that first print. You know, there's a lot of stuff wrapped around that. But let's talk about the security implications of that. So if I print something and it's sitting there, and now someone else comes and picks up their job and gets the last page of my job with their job, and there just happened to be a Social Security number on there, or a benefits statement talking about, you know, some doctor's visit, or there's, you know, there's some massive project that's being worked on that could be, you know, at risk because we don't want anybody to know what's happening yet. That is really where the security comes in. So thinking about not letting that happen anymore is a very big part of this conversation. Hard disk security. So now it's time to refresh the copier fleet. The copiers roll out. What happens to all the data that's sitting on those hard drives? What happens if somebody gets those hard drives and prints all the data, or just takes it and downloads it to a computer? You know, these are things that have to be considered. A lot of people don't think about that. I think about it every time a copier comes out of one of my clients' offices. The thing is that these are all the types of things wrapped around security that are involved in just print. Start talking about the computers and the servers. You know, it's a very similar conversation there. Security breaches. To this day, 25% of security breaches are still paper-based. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm walking out of the enterprise with a bundle of paper under my arm. I might be walking over to a scanner and scanning that outside of my organization. Client lists, proprietary information about technology, whatever it might be. A big portion of it is hard drive based, thumb drives, computers that are misplaced, stolen, or whatever, but still 25% is paper based. It's mind blowing. So now let's talk about regulations for a second. So the compliance piece, you've got, if you're involved in securities, you have FINRA regulations. If you're a corporation, you got Sarbanes-Oxley and reporting issues. You have HIPAA, breathing down your neck anytime you're dealing with private healthcare information. So in a print environment, you want to make sure that none of this stuff is available to anybody that it shouldn't be available to. In a scan environment, you want to make sure that you are controlling what is scanning. So just a little tidbit, the key to compliance is not something you could go and buy. I can't go and buy a box of compliance. Compliance is enabled through process. And process today is enabled through technology. So we could talk about that on the panel level. And then there's the process improvement. I left this slide pretty blank because any process can be improved. Improved by being more secure, being faster, being easier, easier to collaborate, easier to evaluate and measure. I mean, there's a million things we could talk about. I could spend hours just talking about process improvement. But that is really what everyone in this room is looking for, better process. And then there's the Green Initiative. So the one thought I want to leave you with there as it relates to print is everybody we talk to wants to cut costs, right? Everybody wants to run more efficiently. They want to save money. How am I going to print for less money? I always say, let's not talk about printing for less money. Let's talk about printing less. I'll help you print for less money, but the real golden nugget out there is let me print less. So the idea is we bring those three pieces together, we lay it over the client's goals, and now you have a real strategy. And in this case, it would be a print environment, a scan environment strategy. So the question then is, what do I do now? All right, so now I have a strategy. How do I implement that strategy? What do I do? So a very interesting study was done. This slide will make your head explode. So let me explain it to you because it's very hard to understand it. So the vertical axis, this here, right? That's the percentage of people in the survey that responded that way. The horizontal axis is how much did they save? What percentage did they save when they refreshed their print environment? So if you see the left side, you've got from 1 to 19% savings, 20% over there. 15% of the people said they saved 20 to 24%. But the right side, we actually have up to 41% cost reduction reported. So the thing is, what is the difference? What makes the right side different from the left side? And here it is. The left side did a like for like. We've got a copier here and a printer there. I want a copier here and a printer there. The right side said, throw a hand grenade in what I have now, blow it up. Let's go with a clean sheet design. Let's start from scratch. Now, the beauty of technology is it's evolving so fast, you really need to do that for a lot of things because the solution that's available to you today wasn't available to you 5 years ago, 3 years ago, the last time you went around this project. So this is how we're going to close it now. I'm going to give you just real quick a real-life scenario from one of our clients, one of our actual engagements. So we've got a client. This is one floor. This is one floor of multiple floors. They basically were spending almost 10 grand a month to keep their print environment going. That was basically 5 Ricoh copiers and 62 Hewlett-Packard printers. The thing that was fascinating to me, 3-to-1 ratio of employee to print device. That's very, very big. And they had 22 different devices, so that means 22 different types of toner that had to be ordered on a regular basis, 22 different types of drivers that IT had to manage, just so someone can hit print and actually get a piece of paper to come out the other end. So a little bit expensive on the infrastructure side. Was it a law firm? This was a law firm. We do a lot of those. So now let's take a look at this. So a like for like, right? So we always run that. If I just do what you have and give you the new version, I could save you 15%. That was almost $1,500 savings. You would think that they'd be happy with that. 15% reduction to have what I had yesterday. Awesome, really exciting. But here's what wound up happening. We did a complete clean sheet design, and the key to making this work was software. It wasn't the copiers or the printers, it was software. So what software was able to do is provide a secure print environment here. So now I hit print, nothing comes out. I got to go and release the job. I have to authenticate at the device. I got the ability to print mobily. So now I can take my iPhone, my Android, my tablet, I could hit print, and I can, just like from my computer, I could go and I can securely release the job. Very, very cool. I got one driver that IT has to manage for every device. They love that. I've got phenomenal reporting and statistics, so I could actually see what my end users are doing. I could see by department what's happening. So 3 years from now, when I have to refresh again, I actually have empirical data that I could use to make a better business decision of what I need to do the next time around. I've got a 10-to-1 employee ratio of employees to devices now, so I got rid of most of them, which is really cool. I've got an MPS contract managing the actual single-function HP printers. So automatic toner replenishment, I'm paying per page, I'm not dealing with it anymore, I'm worrying about delivering law and not dealing with that. Very, very cool. And then on top of that, I'm reducing my print by 20%. Now, we usually see a 10 to 20% reduction in print just from doing this. In some cases, it's even more. And that's because of the secure print function. So I hit print, Mike hits print, he goes over to release his job, he sees my job is coming out. He's not going to get it from that machine. He's going to walk over to another machine and authenticate, and then his job comes out. Very, very cool stuff. This is totally enabled by software and technology. So the deal is that you've got to go through phases, and in order to do this correctly, you must have really, really good discovery. You have to be willing to think outside the box and not just, always done it this way, let's just do it this way again. You have to be willing to be a little more creative and out of the box in your thinking so that you can take advantage of the technology that's out there. And then you phase it in. I mean, you could do it all at once, you could phase it in, you could do it any way you want. But the main thing is you got to have a plan, you got to have a strategy. So I'm going to go to the last slide just so you can get Mike's cell phone number. So if you need to talk to us, that's Mike over there, Mike Lowe. He is the guy to call. So a little tidbit about doing business with LDI and how we operate. So we deal with a lot of very high-end manufacturers. Everybody wants us to sell their products. So we really go for a best-of-breed type of an arrangement. So we're Canon's largest independent dealer in the Northeast, for example. So if you want to work with us, if you want to work with our clients, the way we work is it's all referred lead prospecting. Some people in this room are already our clients. Some people in this room are going to become our clients. You're already engaged. And that's because we do an engagement and then people talk and then we do another one and people talk and we do another one. So a big way that we work is through referrals. So if you want to do business with our clients, we want to do business with your clients. So it's a very, very much a synergistic relationship. So I would recommend that you talk to Mike. Let's get you on the wheel. If there's any way that we can work together, we totally welcome that opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, we're now going to move into the technology. I'm going to ask the panelists just to remain seated and slide the appropriate microphones in front. And let's talk about, and starting with Carolyn. Carolyn, we talked a little bit about, some of the, you mentioned briefly about the scheduling. I'd like you to go into a little bit of greater detail about your open source and your APIs as it relates to your mobile apps, and also anything else that would be applicable from a technology perspective. I'd then like to have Scott to follow up from First Data to kind of talk a little bit about that. I know, Mike, you just finished talking a little bit about, but you can add something. Be mindful of time frame, please, because I want to make sure we leave sufficient amount of time for the audience to be able to question in terms of the panelists, okay? Carolyn?
So we have actually a whole developer community that we've got a Google group. If you go to the mta.info webpage, The instructions on how to access our data and download it are available on that webpage. The data is free, but if you do want to use any MTA logos or intellectual assets, you have to get that license. It is possible for the MTA to actually approve and support the thing that you've developed so that it's kind of MTA sponsored, but it doesn't have to be. You can go out and do the development and we not like it. Right? So, but the data is open source and it is schedule information that's provided. So you've got train schedule, when the trains are scheduled to depart and when they're scheduled to arrive. And then you have actual real-time data that we are capturing that's fed in these, they're called GTFS feeds. So you can subscribe to those as well. And we monitor the Google groups, we answer questions and so on. The developers reach out to, the developer community actually reaches out to our developers when they have issues. So that's how we publish the open data.
Okay, Scott?
Sure.
So first data, when you talk about payment processing, it's a tremendously complex environment. There's... Sure. Is this better?
Much better, but if you guys don't do that, valuable information is not getting to the people who are standing where I am sitting.
Great. Thank you for that. So what we've tried to do at First Data is, because innovation is important, is we've tried to create the opportunities for developers to take advantage of all that complexity, to generate technology and to do development that'll build relationships with us. So for an example, we have APIs, public APIs, we have development toolkits, we have the environments where developers can, in a number of different languages, whether it's Java or Rails, Ruby on Rails, things like that, where you can develop relationships with us, develop the software. We have programs in which you can install the software. So it's a credit card payment on processing on the machines. You can do certification with us, and then you can actually create your own businesses around that. I mentioned our Clover solution. Clover is a point of sale. It's a fully integrated point of sale. Clover itself, from a hardware perspective, has wireless, bigger machines for point of sale, but it also has a level of software on it that would provide software for any different functions within your business. That's also an open API. You can develop software there. You can have access to create, change, configure, software. What we're trying to do is promote an open environment that really pushes innovation out and creates not only opportunities for us to do business, but opportunities for developers and software innovators to have access to all the systems we have in the payment processing field.
Okay, I think Clayton wants to jump in here.
I just want to say something real quick for everybody here. What you're hearing, is it like that? You're going to turn me off? Really? What you're hearing, if any of you are in this room, if any of you are looking to build your current business or looking to start a new business, if you don't know what they mean by API, for example, sometimes what happens is when you're so close to technology, you start throwing out acronyms and you assume everybody knows what it means. The API, if you don't know what that means, it's an application programming interface. Did you guys know that? So anyway, the point is, what that allows you to do is use their platform for your product or service. So instead of you having to build, for example, to know where all of the MTA stations are, that's already built into their platform, so you don't have to go out and find that and design that. Or in First Data's case, if you've never interfaced with credit cards, you don't have to invent that process, it's already there. So let's put this in context. If you are a small business owner, if you're a business owner, if you're someone who's trying to build a business or want to create a new business, what they are saying is we are giving you everything you need to do that now. Now you need a developer to help you, that's why I'm here. But the point is, if you're trying to start an Uber, You know, Uber didn't invent the mapping technology they have on that. They went and found an API. If you're trying to do financial literacy, what they're saying is there's platforms that will, MasterCard will give you their infrastructure so you can start that. So that's what this means. I just want to put it in context because some of you want to be, you know, build your business or start a new business. What the MTGA just told you is we have a whole department to help you do that, saving you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Thank you.
Mike?
It's a very interesting topic. A lot of the printer manufacturers that we work with actually provide this capability. All of them are a little different. They all work a little differently. I could give you an example. Like if you want to work with HP, you can forget it. They're locked down and proprietary from one end to the next. If you want to work with companies like Toshiba, Sharp, or Samsung, pretty easy to do. You want to work with Canon, it's much more like working with Apple, where everything is extremely vetted. So for us as integrators, when I put a solution on a Canon and it's embedded, I know it works because it's been so well vetted. If I'm going with a different manufacturer, I need to test it a lot before I put it out in the field because there's always a concern that it's just so wide open, you don't know if it's going to work. But if you want to develop things that are going to help improve workflow or integrate another software solution, like if there's a scanning workflow and you've got some kind of a solution on the back end or an accounting system and you wanted to integrate it with one of these devices and have a button to get into your system, that's the kind of stuff that can be enabled with this type of code and APIs. And a lot of it, I believe, is JavaScripting. I don't know if you know that, but that's pretty much what most of them are using now. So it is definitely an opportunity for growth. And certainly for creativity.
Did anyone, more importantly, lose glasses? Did anyone misplace their glasses? Can they see? I don't know. But if they can't see, then I would raise my hand. Well, anyway, this lovely young lady behind me here has your glasses, or someone you know may have lost their glasses. So let's do a little brief recap because I want to get into the Q&A. You guys have been very good. You've sat here patiently for the past hour almost. And so now I want to get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, we've heard presentations from the three presenters. You've heard First Data. You've heard from LDI. You've also heard from the MTA about what the process is, what do they do, how do you do it. Remember I said when we first started this cruise ride, it's all about the process, no matter whether it's a construction project or professional services or technology. How do I procure? How do I enter into the game? As what Clayton just mentioned, you have access for the MTA. You have access from First Data, and you also heard Mike talk about access for some of the corporations that he represents, okay? So now we understand the process. The next thing is the technology. You've heard about the technology, whether it's credit cards, whether it's, you know, helping you to be more efficient in terms of your infrastructure. And LDI went through a big conversation about the print media and how it saves you money and all of that, but it boils down to this, ladies and gentlemen. Your infrastructure is critical. As I started this conversation, if your infrastructure is not sound, if it's not tight, then you are spending money, you're adding pricing to your price that you don't need to add. So, with that being said, any questions? Okay, hold on please. You're going to stand up. This young man coming up is going to give you the microphone.
You are.
Tell her who
Tell them
you
who you
are
and what you represent.
and who you, if you have a business, what services you provide.
Okay, my name is Colette Boston, and I'm an author, but there's a business that I'm getting into, a nonprofit called Stepping Stones Incorporated, that I'm starting from scratch. And basically the question I wanted to ask, and it can be directed to anyone, but many times, because I've done taxes for the last 12 years, or as a tax preparer, and one of the things I wanted to ask you was, many of the big companies purposely bought extra equipment so they could use the depreciation on that equipment to lower their bottom line and also pay less for taxes using depreciation. When you streamline that, how does that affect their bottom line and their tax, the possible tax loss?
Most of our clients do not purchase outright. Most of our clients finance. What happens when you do an operating lease, which is what we normally do, the entire lease payment becomes tax deductible. So there is no depreciation requirement. So if I do a 3-year operating lease on a copier fleet, every dollar that they spend is deducted as an operating expense. Now, I'm not giving anybody tax. This is my disclaimer. I am not an accountant, and I am not providing tax advice to anyone in this room.
This is not
Okay.
H&R Block.
If this is the way the questions are going to go, I'm out of here, man. That was a good question, though. Very insightful. If you need your taxes done, you know who to go to now.
Need to go to. Next question. Gentleman right here.
Hi, my name is Clarence Williams. I am an entrepreneur. My company was Easy Way Ordering. We did online ordering platform for restaurants. It was acquired in 2015 by First Data, and that's why I work with these gentlemen now. My question was for you with the MTA. I noticed, I think your number 2 bullet point was around the experience where customers can purchase tickets, fares, etc. You may have heard we know a couple things about that. I was wondering how First Data could get involved or pitch the MTA or help collaborate on developing a solution that would be more efficient for your customers.
Okay. Well,
I wouldn't be an entrepreneur if I didn't try, right?
Listen. I hear you, brother. I hear you.
well,
Carolyn?
you certainly could give me your card. In information technology, we're always looking for new ways to solve problems and for innovation. That's one. The other is there are RFPs that come out for new technologies, and you can go in and bid on some of these. If you are an MWBE or a disadvantaged business entrepreneur, you can also work with people who have already been awarded the bid, because they usually have some percentage of the contract award for small businesses. So there's a couple ways. The other way is we're always looking to do staff augmentation and to just work directly with small businesses, but we still have to go through a whole procurement process to do that. So, one, being in touch with us and understanding what our projects are and working with us, that will help.
Also, keep in mind, and this gentleman first behind you, then this gentleman in front of him, keep in mind that if it's a public agency, and MTA and DASNY are in that boat, everything is on their website. And I would assume that with LDI and also with Scott's firm, First Data, same thing. Everything's all on the website, so that's what you should familiarize yourself with. If it is a public entity, either the state of New York, the New York State Contract Reporter is the procurement arm for the state of New York. Any purchase $5,000 or more must be advertised in the New York State Contract Reporter. If you're dealing with a New York City mayoral agency here in the 5 boroughs, it is the city record. So those would be the 2 procurement arms to find out about any kind of technology or any kind of procurement that any public entity is doing. Sir.
Hi, my name is Andrew Clark, and I'm a UX designer. In my previous life as a network administrator, close to 15 years ago, I was charged with locating businesses that had paperless environments. So I'm wondering, how close are we to achieving that goal?
Not close enough, I can tell you that one right now.
Everybody's looking at me. I don't know why. Well, your bathroom is going to be paperless before your office is, I can tell you that.
Oh, boy. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Nice
Whoa.
standard line there. I like that.
So the truth is that paper is becoming less. Everybody that we do business with, it's less. It's always less. We don't think it's going to go away for a long time. but it is less, and what's making it less is the technology. So where you might have a physical validation now for a purchase, right? So someone makes a purchase, I've got to have it validated, it's validated on paper. Once you move to an automated system, the validation becomes a click of a mouse, a digital signature, things like that. So now that paper doesn't need to be created anymore. So those are the types of things that are eliminating paper. We're not really receiving faxes anymore. We're getting an email now. So a lot of that paper is going away. But I'll tell you, like in my world, I try to be paperless. I have very, very few files. But if you come into my office, I always have stacks, ask Michael, I have stacks of paper on my desk at all times. And I just can't seem to get away from it. I can't proofread something on the screen. I see what's not there. It's like I don't know what my brain does, but it corrects it by itself, and I don't see the mistakes. But when it's on paper, I can see the mistakes. And I have a feeling that that's generational. So when the millennials take over, I have a feeling that there's going to be much less paper, because they're much more, into this than they are into actual paper. But it's going to be a while.
Okay. All right, sir. And then the young lady next.
Jamal
You
Thomas,
wanted to
Arise Technology. I do technology consulting to help companies save money on their telecommunications and cloud services. This question is for Scott. I've been following blockchain with my friends a lot lately, and as a financial company, curious to find out what the applications where the rubber's really hitting the road. Like, whose calls are you actually picking up related to blockchain, and what are some of the use cases that are currently going on?
Sure, great question. In the technology world, when you hear blockchain, you think Bitcoin. Blockchain itself it's a little closer away from bleeding edge than it is leading edge. So from a first data perspective, it's an area that we're looking at a lot. When you talk about from the cost perspective of data and the integrity of data, it's definitely something that we're investing in. How that bleeds into our relationships with merchants and vendors, it's kind of a back office thing. That's something that, almost like the black box where you really don't have to care how the data is stored. But we're seeing a lot of value in that and some of the other bleeding edge technologies on the ways we can promote our relationships with our third parties and with our other partners. I think when you talk about Bitcoin, because that's really pushing in the financial industry a lot of people to take a look at it. It's pulling along blockchain with it. So we're seeing that it's definitely now a viable solution for just regular database storage, but also the interaction of the application layers for accessing data, storing data, making decisions on data, analyzing data. I think we're going to see industry-wide that blockchain is something that is, in just a couple of years, will be almost a standard.
Clay?
Okay.
Next.
Everybody understood just what happened? Okay. I'm just going to say very quickly. One, you heard one gentleman stand up and say he was a UX designer. Everybody understand what that means? User experience designer. Second, this question about the blockchain coming from Mr. Thomas, who's a friend of mine. You're hearing that word as a buzzword quite a bit right now, blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. As I said earlier, bone up on artificial intelligence. You also want to get very studious around blockchain. We are going to have a whole discussion about that at the Silicon Harlem conference, bringing in the top people around this. Blockchain could be used for many things. Social good, real estate, networking. It has a lot of impact. I'm sorry? Document storage. Document storage. My word for 2018 is democratization, and blockchain has a lot to do with that. Let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Sandra Clark, and we're not related, or maybe we are. Let's find out with our next family reunion. I'm a secondary teacher, high school. A lot of us teachers are finding ourselves sort of pushed out of the, the brick and mortar buildings. I want to know what we can do. I'm the point person because I love Harlem and I love to travel. They said, you go up there and you find out and come back and tell us. We're not affiliated with 65 Court Street, which is the Department of Education. We kind of want to branch out on our own so that we have more control about, how we teach and what works with us or for us. And my question is, I'm from Brooklyn. I had a very good commute, thank you. And I do, I love the trains. Even if I'm delayed, I like them. I don't know what it is, I love them. And
Record that lady for a
no, I
commercial.
do. I really love them. No, it's okay. I always converse with people. It's not a problem. I'm a teacher. But my question is, how do I upgrade myself? I'm a liberal arts major. I love business. I love the acronyms. I love learning. But like, what do I do? Do I have to go back to school again?
Clayton, why don't you take a shot at that one to start?
Thank you for the question. We're all upgrading ourselves as we go along. I would imagine you have a smartphone. That's a great tool right in your pocket. Mapping, educational courses, all types of things can be done with your smartphone already. You have to take advantage of it. You know, there's, all of you, do you realize there's a minimum 6 radios in your cell phone? 6 different radios in your cell phone. If you took it apart, you could figure this out. So 6 different radios in your cell phone. So there's a lot of capability within a smartphone. I would start there because I know you probably carry it almost everywhere you go. But in terms of just educating yourself about technology, no, you don't have to go back to school necessarily, but you have to stay up on what's happening. And not every single piece of new information you're going to have to always get involved in. But get involved in those things that you have most interest in and where you are proficient, right? So what we miss in technology is people with experience and know the topic. We just know how to put the tools on top of it. So I don't know, I mean, there's a lot of developers that I know that are excellent, but have no idea about what a teacher has gone through or what a teacher may have to do. So we have to do what we call marry art and tech, marry education and tech. Marry every discipline with tech because tech can enhance that experience. So it's not about your deficiency, it's about your collaboration to make things move forward.
You had, and then Mike.
So
you'll be next.
what we're seeing in the classroom now, technology is not changing the lesson plan, but it's changing the way the lesson plan is being delivered. So where 10 years ago you would go to a copier and print out the workbooks and then hand them out to the class and then stand in front of the class with a chalkboard, which then became a smart board, and deliver your lesson. Now what's happening is we're starting to get visual display technology in the classroom where you've got this interoperability where, you know, the kids might have tablets and the teacher is standing in front of the room with a tablet and the lesson is behind her on the smart board, and she's controlling the classroom. So let's say you're doing a math problem and you see that this guy over here is solving the problem in a very creative way that's different from everyone else. You might say, hey, I'm going to put yours up so we can see what you're doing. You hit a button and now all of a sudden his tablet's on the front of the room and you're talking about what he's doing. You know, and teachers are starting to utilize this technology to pull the shy kid out and, you know, trying to get them to be, you know, more in the front. And we're seeing Google playing a huge role here. So a lot of the lesson plans are coming down from the cloud, right, from Google. You have testing being done digitally, and then you're graphing the responses. I mean, that's what's changing. And for you to learn this new technology is not going to be a big deal. Do not be afraid of that. Your integrator is going to have to provide the training and make it work. You would take to it like a fish to water.
Okay.
You're still delivering a lesson plan.
You know, just listening to what's going on here.
Yeah.
Oh, where
Come
I'm
on,
from.
buddy. Infomercial, infomercial.
My name is Michael Sutton. I am the president of Infrastructure Engineering. We started off with 2 people. Today we're approximately 90 people with multiple offices. And so, you know, I'm listening to the people here, especially the beginning entrepreneurs and maybe some of the advanced people. When we started off as 2 people, I'm an engineer. And at that time, when I started off, 20 years ago, other firms were, especially our big partners, the big companies, had integrated IT with servers and all that type of stuff. So when I started off in business with 2 people, we had to invest in a integrated IT, even though we only had 3 computers and 1 server, and so we had to invest. So my advice to people in the room is that even in my home, we have multiple devices and
and all that type of stuff. I don't know this stuff. And so from day one, when I went into business, I had a part-time IT person that helped us on a daily basis to make sure that our systems and stuff were operating, was connected properly, and all that type of stuff. And even in my home, I have to do the same thing because, you know, the kids, the wife, things are not working, so I gotta call somebody up. So what I advise to entrepreneurs and even individuals is that this is not your expertise. Get yourself some help. Make sure you invest in IT and keep your system operating. I cannot afford to have my system down one day. That would cost me thousands and thousands of dollars. One of the challenges that we have in our business with the multiple offices, the internet service providers are not universal. And so it's really cool when you got Comcast in Chicago, and you got Comcast in Indianapolis, and you got Comcast in LA and in New York, because everything is IT now. Your telephones, your computers, everything works properly. And so, but in offices where we don't have a common IT provider, we run into difficulties. And I'm even talking to my IT guy, well, there's nothing we really can do to integrate a Comcast with a whatever. With,
Time Warner.
Yeah, Time Warner. And so that makes it really difficult. So how can we integrate, we talk about integration, how can we integrate our offices where we can use the technology to connect them? And where when I hit a telephone number, the 4-digit telephone number where our offices are connected, I get my person. But when our office is not connected, I have to dial the 10 digits or whatever. Yeah, it's 10 digits, right? So how do we do that?
I can talk to that. So, what I kind of figure out what you're talking about is where's the accountability lie, right? And
then it's brother.
yeah.
I didn't understand what the cloud was. I'm not the brightest IT person. You talk about cloud, I was like, what the hell is a cloud? And they talk about remote servers. So there's some, the language that, you guys use. It'd be nice if you guys would explain it a little bit.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have jobs. So. Yeah, and listen, you can get different definitions of cloud from everybody. Just to your point, though, about where's the accountability lie, and you're running your business on that network. Going back to what I mentioned when I was standing up there, this is why it's so important to develop really strong relationships and find organizations that will accept the accountability. And you can find them out there. I know at First Data, when we're talking with merchants and we're talking with small business, we don't want to just sell them a piece of software and walk away. Surprisingly, there's a lot of companies out there that will still do that. I don't know how they compete because it's not just a solution to run your inventory or in your case maybe to do monitoring on your networking and thing. It's how do I get support? How do I define support and what are my service level agreements so that when there is a problem, how can I go about handling that? That's why you need a partner that will address all that. And that's why I say that relationship is so important. It should go beyond the piece of software you buy. It should go about how do I run my business and what are the expectations when things happen. So it's mind-boggling to me sometimes when businesses are putting all of that effort into it, that you still find companies out there that really aren't being accountable to provide you that service. And that's why you really need to demand that. And that's why it's, to take advantage of technology, they need to know what your business is.
We're down to 2 more questions, so this gentleman, and here, and then we're going to have to close. Yeah.
My name is Aaron Shaw. I'm a recent graduate from Memorial College. I graduated my business, and minor is information technology. I have a question for Silicon Harlem and First Data. My question is, what area of technology does Silicon Harlem focus on even when working with software? What can Silicon Harlem do when competing with different countries to improve their technology? And First Data, How much coding is required to maintain the system, and how often do you update the application when you're working on it? And also, what makes you different from other companies that compete with you, such as Apple?
Okay.
Address that first? Yeah, sure. So from a first data standpoint, let me just make sure I understand what you're asking. If you're going to become partners with us, how often do we update, upgrade, and how, what's the expectation you can have for us to provide you the best service and the most up-to-date service? So from that alone, when we're, for us, the APIs, the application program interfaces, and those technologies we're generating to allow you to do business with us, that for us is basically a line of business. So we have a whole group that is just focused on that. So, when we provide an API, the API itself may not change, but the programming that goes on behind it does. So, when you say, I want to use First Data, why? Because they have all the complexity and they can deal with all the different payment processing, which there's so many different ways to do payment processing. They're going to take care of that for me. What you're doing is you're creating a relationship with us, so we're exposing all of that to you. So you have all of that information. One, we want to make sure your business is running. Two, we want to make sure that you know what we're doing behind the scenes. That information is publicly available. We have groups where you can become partners with those groups. There's so much value. We kind of started originally talking about it's people. It really is people. We're trying to empower people. So that to us is almost like it's the technology, but it's the group of people that are using the technology that we're treating. So we don't want to talk technology at that level. We want to make sure that you have what you have access to the right people to ask questions. When we're doing major things, you'll know about it. You'll be able to sustain your business. So like I said, we have a whole group of people that are working just on that, and we're interacting with people like you if you partner with us, that there's total transparency, and that's how something like that works. So your other question was about competition. Sure. Yep. So First Data, it's an interesting relationship. We may compete in those areas, but we really partner with those groups. So when Apple Pay came out, we were very quick to market on accepting Apple Pay through our First Data systems. Basically, to give a picture, when you do payment processing, there's a lot of things that have to happen no matter how you're paying. Right? There's authorization, there's settlement, people want to get their money, and the transactions have to go to the right endpoints. How you pay causes some challenges for us. We have many more than one group who are just looking at that. So Apple Pay is a good example, Android Pay, all the innovation that's happening in the payment industry right now, we have groups of people who are looking just at that. And we're partnering with a company like an Apple, saying we're going to do Apple Pay, and it's going to be just sitting at the front of our systems, but it's using all of our back-end systems. So I wouldn't say so much that we're competing. We're actually partnering with all of them. When new things come along, we're trying to be innovative. We're trying to be ahead of that. And for the partners that are using our systems, once again, the transparency is there. They know what we're working on. We listen to them so that we're investing a lot of effort into making sure that those technologies are available to somebody like you. Does that address your question? Okay.
Clayton, you want to?
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. Tell me your name again, Sean? Aaron Shaw. First of all, Jeffrey would agree with me. That's how you ask a question. You write it down and you just ask a question. So thank you for doing that. Give that young man a nice hand. He's a good young man. Plus, you asked me a question, so I'm super happy. The Silicon Harlem has two critical areas that we like to focus on when it comes to technology and what we're rolling out. One of them is your standard connectivity issues. In Upper Manhattan, almost 40% do not have broadband. Hear me? Good. 40% do not have broadband. It's not an issue of access. It's an issue of affordability. So we believe that that's an issue we have to address and a gap we have to close. So we're doing it in a bunch of different ways, and I'm not going to get too particularly into right now, but I will tell you that that is a mission that we are very focused on. The second one is, we've heard this term digital divide. Digital divide. Well, the fact of the matter is digital divides have existed for a long time. They come and they come and they come and they come. There was a digital divide when we rolled out cable. Went to affluent neighborhoods first, and it rolled down to low income later. We had digital divide when we rolled out the internet, went to affluent homes, rolled down to low income later. The current one is broadband, where we went to the affluent homes, and now we've priced it to where the affluent homes can afford it and low income can't. That's become less of a inner city issue and more of an economic issue, right? That's where the Trump thing comes from, where people thought they were always going to be on the other side of that line. They down here with the rest of us. Yeah, right? So what I'm saying to you is Silicon Harlem is focused on, if myself, who's been in the business for some time and have seen these, I've lived through these divides. In fact, I know Larry Irving, who literally came up with that phrase, digital divide, when he was working in the President Clinton's administration. If I know this information, if I've been exposed, if I've had access, I should be in a position to do something about it. So I'm thinking, what's the next digital divide? I'm thinking, what's next? And for me, because the obvious astute question would be, well, Clayton, what the heck is the next digital divide? In my opinion, it's smart technology. So we're hearing a lot about smart technology, and that's a good thing, but are we really educating ourselves around it? Are we on the side of it as producers and makers? Are we working with the manufacturers to make sure that it's accessible? Are we working to make sure that it's affordable? Because if I'm someone who's developing and spending my money and my treasure and my intelligence on building something for a smart city or a smart community, I'm trying to make my money back as quickly as possible. And the theory has been to go to those affluent people who, one, have access to the knowledge, and two, can afford it, and therefore get ahead in that particular technology. It seems to me, as the manufacturers have found out in almost every industry, that once you get to the masses, it's actually a good thing. They always think, oh, we should have done that in the first place. Well, yeah, that's right. The problem is you have business pressures to force you to go to affluent neighborhoods first, and if your population doesn't educate itself, it will come trailing. So Silicon Harlem is focused on to ensure that inner cities and urban markets are leading technology, and in fact, in some ways, leapfrogging technology so we can lead. Everyone knows urban markets is where everyone's trying to live now. So we have to now build that infrastructure to support that. So Silicon Harlem right now is working on a corridor that's going to be a smart corridor in Upper Manhattan that we hope we can replicate around the world. Because this is not a New York thing. This is a worldwide thing where we can collect better data, provide low-cost, high-speed broadband connectivity rather than the slow-speed, high-cost that we tend to have today. We need more competition in that space, right? So when people talk about a provider, and the reason why we have poor service is because sometimes it's the only one in the market. So what do they have to call you back for? You know, so Silicon Harlem is dead focused on the infrastructure of any community and the smart technology and any other divide that we can predict may be coming and trying to preempt it. That's what we're trying to do.
Thank you. For the last two questions, we'll just take one response. For the last two questions.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamil DeBay, and I'm the president of DeBay Communications, which is a marketing technology company. I'm an engineer by trade and a National Society of Black Engineer alumni, one of the founders of the Alumni Association here in the city. My question for any of the panelists is, how do we, okay, one of the panelists, I'll pick Clayton, since you break it down so well. How do you protect individuals' information? Because when I used to work at Verizon, I was privy to the rooms that they were data mining the information that came through all of the lines. And now that you hear every day that companies, big companies that have millions of subscribers like Yahoo, they're getting compromised, and all our information is out there. Matter of fact, your information gets sold back to you and you don't even own your own personal information. How do you protect, like when I work with the seniors, they are so affected by technology, they don't even want to get part of it because they don't want to get ripped off. So how do we protect our personal data?
Great question. We all have that question. The challenge is how much do you give people? We certainly, yeah, on Facebook, for example, when they first came out, you know, most of us were like 100 years old when you signed up for Facebook. Facebook deaded all that because they wanted to know your exact age. Why is that? Because they were building an algorithm that would follow you the rest of your life. So they knew that when you graduated high school, there were certain types of material and information that you might want to know. They knew when you were probably in your college years, and they do know. They know when you might be first getting married. They may know when you are going to have a baby. They certainly know when you're going to work, because we tell them. So when you share your information like that, you become the product, right? So when you're the product, they can now sell you. So that's where it starts. To your question of how do we capture some of that back, what we're trying to push on an industry level, on an enterprise level, for example, video analytics. Many cities want to put up more cameras than less and be able to film everything. So we're trying to push to say, listen, you can do video analytics, but you don't need to do it by a person's recognition. You can do it by person's movement, for example. There's ways to strip out the actual personal identity of people. Companies, the private sector particularly, has to be committed to that. And the public has to support that and put policies and laws in place to protect us. It's a big issue that you're asking about, Jamil. It's a big, big issue. But the trend has been, at least with those who are growing up with social media, has been that they think that they're protected when they're not. And they're given this information, and that's making these companies stronger. When Facebook has over 1 billion people on their platform, they cannot go away. 1 billion plus people, 2 billion people on their platform, there's nothing that we can do to stop them in a lot of ways. So we have to work on an enterprise level to get people to start looking at this from a trends perspective rather than an identity perspective. And MTA, Carolyn, did you want to say anything? Because you guys are working on some of that. Oh, I'm sorry, just one person. Okay, we got to go.
Okay, yeah, my name is Keith Williams. I'm now a practicing entrepreneur. I realize I've always been an entrepreneur since I painted spinning tops. When I was 8 years old, you know, on 29th Street, I painted spinning tops. Yeah, they bought it. Now, as far as technology, I followed up with what you said is a good way to answer the question. But see, I had to go the primitive way, you know, because I'm still there. I'm blessed to have encountered some multiple businesses, and I can't stay away from a good opportunity. And they all center mostly around health and wellness. Matter of fact, I want to start a company called Health is True Wellness. I haven't done it yet. One is a very superior, powerful ginseng. The other one's a homeopathic topical pain relief. The other one involves women, and it's a very personal issue, but it's an awareness campaign. Each have their own website. That costs me money. I'm on a shoestring budget. I'm hearing people say that you can create a domain, GoDaddy, so to speak, and I'm giving out different business cards, trying to have different sites. Is there a way that I can have one umbrella site? And then as I'm engaging people on relationships, that I can find out what their needs are and steer them to one particular landing page? I can't help but ask this question. I feel like I'm over my head with this technology talk, but that's what I want to do. I want to have an umbrella group. I want to direct to Mr. Banks. Thank you.
Here's what I would suggest as a beginning, as a first step for you. How aggressive are you on Facebook? Have you set up your? Do you have a business page? That's where I would start, because the people who are interested in what you're doing and those who are interested in that space will form a community around what you're doing. So now you can communicate to that community on a regular basis. So I recommend that for anyone. If you don't have the budget, you don't have the time, you don't have the skill set necessarily or the resources to build out a platform, a tech platform where you're actually out there on the World Wide Web by yourself, I would recommend that you start in a space like Facebook, where people are literally coming into your space because they're interested or they have some sort of affiliation with what you're doing. We just started one, or I personally started one on blockchain. So I've got hundreds of people that already automatically were just like, yes, I'm into that. And so we can now work together, and then you start to monetize that. So I would recommend that as a way to get into it, and that's easy, something that you can do. It's not you have to hire Hans over here, who's 20-something years old. He can do it for you, but he'll charge you. So you want to get out there and do that. I want to keep that short, but talk to me afterwards, Keith, because I didn't know you had that issue. So let's talk more about that.
We're going to have to end and wrap up. We're going to have Clayton kind of wrap it up in the next 30, 60 seconds to get this done. Number one, can we give a hand to our panelists? Okay. I'm not saying that you can't have a question. It's just that we can't do it publicly. I know this young lady had her hand up. This gentleman had his hand up to speak, and there may be others. You can engage the panelists or myself one-on-one afterwards, so please don't be put off the fact that you can't ask your question. Number one, I just want to thank the Chamber, Lloyd, and also I want to thank you all for taking your time, because your time is valuable. You don't get this back. So thank you very much for spending it with us.
Okay, I am going to take those 60 seconds, but I'm going to start with, how about Michael Clay? He really put it in, right? I was sitting right next to him halftime, and I was watching him pull the hook on these guys. Come on, get off this thing. So I wanted to thank him for spending the time and working with all of us to make this panel. Yeah, Keith, you're right. It's one of the greatest panels we've seen today on technology. Thank you very much. I also wanted to thank all of you for coming out. I think, Bruce, is Alfonso still in the room? Okay, well, our Deputy Commissioner of Do It is here. So if you get a chance to meet Alfonso Jenkins, he also lives in Harlem, which is phenomenal. He's one of the people that's heading up what's happening with the infrastructure of New York City, so he's great. My volunteers that are now giving me this kind of signal, like, come on, Clayton, get it over with. But good friends are here, old friends are here, new friends are here. I see our startup community is in here, knocking it out at the park. Kay Shaw, if you guys don't know about Black Public Media, that is the expert in New York City right there. Kay Shaw, wave your hand, please, Kay Shaw, so people know who you are. And has adapted technology for what she's doing. She has her own hackathon. Her companies are presenting their films and doing a great job. So if you have a film or you want to talk to somebody who's in art, that is the lady, also a Harlemite. Again, thanks Jolie. Jolie is the guy in the back who does this for us. Silicon Harlem streams our events, as well as the Columbia University AV. Ramon, is it? Oh, Lee. Okay, well, anyway, I want to thank all of them. Anyway, all of you, thank you so much. Hang out for a little bit. They're wrapping it up, and I'm happy to answer some questions.
And on behalf of the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce and Harlem Week 2017 Incorporated, we want to thank you for joining us for this important conversation on tech and how to improve your businesses. Some of our panelists are still here. If you have any additional questions, thank you all for coming.